Have you ever wondered why everyone's so obsessed with blockchain but nobody can actually explain what it does? Like, you hear about Bitcoin and NFTs and crypto bros talking about decentralization, and it all sounds like either a scam or magic. Everyone says blockchain is revolutionary, but here's what nobody tells you. Blockchain isn't about money at all. It's about creating trust between strangers who have every reason not to trust each other. It's a system designed by people who assume everyone's lying, and that assumption is exactly what makes it work. Once you understand what blockchain actually does behind the scenes, you'll realize it's solving a problem you didn't even know existed. In the next 15 minutes, you're going to understand exactly what blockchain really does and why it matters. And trust me, it's way more interesting than cryptocurrency. Here's what's really happening every single day. You're scrolling through Twitter or Instagram and you see another story about someone making millions on crypto, or losing millions, or some new blockchain startup promising to revolutionize healthcare or voting or supply chains. And you think, okay, but what is blockchain actually doing? You Google it. You get explanations full of words like distributed ledger and cryptographic hash and consensus mechanism. You close the tab more confused than when you started. So you do what everyone does. You either decide blockchain is a scam invented by tech bros, or you nod along pretending to understand while secretly having no clue. Maybe you buy a little Bitcoin just in case. Maybe you avoid it entirely. But either way, you're making decisions about something you don't actually understand. Think about it this way. Blockchain has been around since 2008. That's over 15 years. Billions of dollars have flowed into blockchain companies. Entire industries are supposedly being disrupted. But if you ask a random person at Starbucks to explain what blockchain does, they can't. They'll mention Bitcoin or maybe something about computers, and then they'll shrug. Here's what most people don't realize. Blockchain isn't complicated because it's advanced technology. It's complicated because everyone explains it backwards. They start with cryptocurrency and work backwards to blockchain. But blockchain isn't about currency. Currency is just one application. Blockchain is about solving a fundamental problem that humans have struggled with for thousands of years. How do you create a permanent record that nobody can tamper with when you can't trust anyone? And this matters because we live in a world built on trust, but trust is expensive. Every time you swipe your credit card, there's a bank in the middle making sure you're not lying about having money. Every time you sign a contract, there's a lawyer and a notary making sure neither party cheats. Every time you buy something on Amazon, there's Amazon in the middle, making sure the seller delivers and you pay. We trust these middlemen because we have no choice. But what if there was a way to prove things without needing a middleman at all? That's what blockchain actually does. So here's how blockchain actually works. And I'm going to explain this so clearly that you'll be mad at everyone who tried to explain it before. Imagine you and your friends go out to dinner. 5 people. The bill comes and you split it evenly. Everyone owes $40. But here's the problem. You need to keep track of who's paid and who hasn't. In the old days, one person would write it down on a napkin. Jake paid. Sarah paid. Mike still owes. That napkin is the official record. But what if the person holding the napkin loses it? What if they lie and say you didn't pay when you did? What if someone erases a name? You need that napkin to be trustworthy, but it's controlled by one person. That's a centralized system. One person has all the power. Now imagine instead that everyone at the table has their own napkin, and every time someone pays, everyone writes it down on their napkin. Jake just paid $40. Now all 5 people have the exact same record. If someone tries to lie and say Jake didn't pay, the other 4 people can pull out their napkins and prove he did. That's blockchain. It's a record that everyone has a copy of, and everyone keeps each other honest. This matters because nobody can cheat the system. There's no single person controlling the napkin. There's no bank or company or government in the middle saying what's true. The group collectively agrees on what's true based on what the majority says. If 4 out of 5 napkins say Jake paid, then Jake paid. End of story. But here's where it gets interesting. In the real world, you're not sharing napkins with 5 friends. You're sharing a digital record with thousands of strangers spread across the planet. People you've never met, people who might want to cheat you. So how do you make sure everyone's keeping an honest record? This is what I call the paranoid ledger. Blockchain assumes everyone is trying to cheat. It's designed for maximum distrust. And that's actually its superpower. Instead of saying, trust this bank or trust this company, blockchain says, don't trust anyone, verify everything. Every transaction that happens gets checked by multiple computers across the network. If your computer says something different than everyone else's, your computer gets ignored. The majority rules. Think of it like Wikipedia for financial records. Wikipedia works because thousands of people are constantly editing and checking each other's work. If someone tries to vandalize a page, someone else notices and reverts it. Blockchain works the same way, except it's for transactions instead of encyclopedia entries. And instead of just reverting bad edits, blockchain makes it mathematically impossible to change old records without everyone noticing. Your brain doesn't naturally think in distributed systems because we evolved in small tribes where everyone knew everyone. If someone in your tribe of 50 people said they'd pay you back, you could track them down and make sure they did. But in today's world, you're doing transactions with strangers across the globe. You can't trust them personally, so you trust institutions like banks and credit card companies to keep things honest. Blockchain offers a third option. Don't trust people or institutions, trust math. Now, this next pattern is particularly sneaky because it's the part everyone gets wrong. Blockchain isn't just about recording transactions, it's about recording them in a way that makes history permanent. This is what I call the time lock effect. Once something is written to the blockchain, it can't be changed, ever. Not by you, not by a hacker, not by the government. It's there forever. Here's how this works. Every time new transactions get added to the blockchain, they get grouped into a block. Think of a block like a page in a notebook. Once that page is full, you move to the next page. But before you move on, you do something clever. You take a summary of everything on the current page and write it at the top of the next page. That summary is called a hash, and it's like a fingerprint of the current page. Now here's the wild part. If anyone tries to go back and change something on an earlier page, it would change that page's fingerprint, which means the fingerprint written on the next page wouldn't match anymore. And the page after that, and the page after that, every single page after the tampered page would have the wrong fingerprint, and everyone would know someone cheated. This matters because it makes history tamper-proof. Traditional databases, a bank or company can go in and change records, delete transactions, alter numbers. With blockchain, if you try to change anything, the entire chain breaks and everyone sees it immediately. It's like writing in permanent marker instead of pencil. Once it's written, it's there forever. And if you think that's wild, check this out. The system is designed so that creating new blocks is deliberately difficult. Computers on the network have to solve really hard math problems to add a new block. This process is called mining, and it's intentionally slow and energy intensive. Why? Because if it was easy to add blocks, it would also be easy to fake them. The difficulty is what makes the system secure. Think about it like a massive Sudoku puzzle that takes 10 minutes to solve. Every 10 minutes, someone on the network solves the puzzle and gets to add the next block of transactions. Everyone else checks their work. If the puzzle is solved correctly and the block is valid, everyone adds it to their copy of the blockchain and moves on to the next puzzle. This happens 24/7, constantly, creating an ever-growing chain of blocks that nobody can fake because nobody has enough computing power to solve the puzzles faster than the entire network combined. This connects to something even deeper about how trust actually works in society. See, we think of trust as this fuzzy human emotion. You trust your friends because you know them. You trust your bank because they've been around forever. But blockchain strips away all the emotion and replaces it with pure math. You don't need to trust anyone's intentions. You just need to trust that math works. 2 + 2 = 4, whether you're in America or China or Mars. Math doesn't care about politics or corruption or human error. And here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to admit. Blockchain isn't actually better than traditional databases for most things. It's slower, It uses way more energy. It's more complicated. If you trust the middleman, like if you trust your bank, you don't need blockchain. A regular database works fine. But here's what's actually happening behind the scenes. There are situations where you can't trust the middleman. Maybe you're in a country with a corrupt government that freezes bank accounts. Maybe you're doing business with someone on the other side of the world and neither of you trusts the other. Maybe you want a record of something that you know people will try to erase later. That's when blockchain matters. What's actually happening is this. Blockchain isn't replacing banks or governments or companies in most situations. It's creating an alternative for situations where those institutions can't be trusted. It's like having a backup system for when the normal system fails. Most people in America don't need blockchain because our banks work pretty well. But someone in Venezuela watching their currency collapse, someone in a country where the government censors records, that's where blockchain actually solves a problem. This isn't about whether blockchain is good or bad. It's about understanding that blockchain is a tool designed for specific situations where trust is impossible. The people who understand blockchain don't think it's magic. They understand it's a really expensive, really slow database that has one superpower. Nobody can tamper with it. Let me tell you about two people who learned about blockchain in very different ways. Let's talk about Mike. Mike heard about Bitcoin in 2017 when it was all over the news. Everyone was talking about how some people were getting rich. Mike didn't really understand blockchain, but he figured if everyone else was investing, he should too. He bought $2,000 worth of Bitcoin, thinking of it like buying stock in Apple or Amazon. Mike watched his investment go up and down. Sometimes it doubled, sometimes it crashed. He'd check the price every day, getting excited or stressed depending on what he saw. But Mike never actually understood what he'd bought. He thought of Bitcoin like digital gold, something that goes up in value. When people asked him about blockchain, he'd mumble something about cryptocurrency and change the subject. Then 2022 happened, the crypto market crashed, Mike's investment dropped 70%, he panicked and sold everything, locking in a huge loss. He walked away thinking blockchain was a scam, a bubble, a waste of time. And from his perspective, he was right to think that. He'd treated it like a lottery ticket and lost. Here's what Mike doesn't realize. He never understood what problem blockchain solves. He bought Bitcoin because he thought it would make him rich, not because he understood the technology or saw a use case for it. When the price crashed, he had no framework for understanding why Bitcoin might still be valuable. He just saw numbers going down and bailed. Now compare that to Jen. Jen also heard about blockchain in 2017, but instead of immediately buying crypto, Jen spent a month learning how it actually works. She watched videos, she read articles, she played around with blockchain explorers to see transactions happening in real time, and she came away understanding that blockchain is a tamper-proof record system that doesn't need middlemen. Jen realized blockchain could be useful for supply chain tracking. She works for a company that imports coffee from Colombia, and they always struggle to prove the coffee is actually ethically sourced. Farmers say one thing, importers say another. There's no single source of truth everyone trusts. So Jen's company started using a blockchain system to track their coffee from farm to store. Every time the coffee changes hands, it gets recorded on the blockchain. The farmer records when they sell it. The importer records when they receive it. The roaster records when they process it. And because it's blockchain, nobody can go back and fake the records later. Customers can scan a QR code on the bag and see the entire journey of their coffee, verified by math instead of trust. Notice how both of them encountered blockchain, but only one of them understood the system? Mike treated blockchain like a get-rich-quick scheme. Jen treated it like a tool that solves specific trust problems. When crypto prices crashed, Mike lost faith in the whole concept. Jen's company kept using blockchain because the price of Bitcoin doesn't matter, they're using the technology to solve a real problem. Here's what most people don't realize about all of this. It's not actually about cryptocurrency at all. Currency is just the most famous application of blockchain technology. It's like if the only thing anyone ever talked about the internet for was email. Email is important, but the internet does way more than email. Same with blockchain. Bitcoin is important, but blockchain can do way more than currency. It's not about being pro-crypto or anti-crypto. It's about understanding what the technology actually actually does. Once you see blockchain as a permanent, tamper-proof record that works without middlemen, instead of seeing it as magic internet money, everything changes. You start understanding why some companies use it for supply chains. You start seeing why artists use it for NFTs, not because JPEGs are valuable, but because blockchain can prove who owns what without needing a company in the middle. You start realizing that the technology has real applications even if you never buy a single Bitcoin. So here's what we've uncovered. Blockchain is a shared record that everyone has a copy of, designed to work even when nobody trusts each other. Remember how it's deliberately slow and difficult to keep it secure? Plus how changing history breaks the entire chain? Plus how the majority of the network has to agree on what's true? This all connects to the fact that blockchain replaces trust in people with trust in math. The question isn't whether blockchain will replace banks or governments tomorrow. The question is whether you'll recognize situations where a tamper-proof record matters more than speed or efficiency. Because now you know blockchain isn't magic or a scam, it's just a really paranoid database. You can't unknow it. So next time someone mentions blockchain, ask yourself, is this solving a trust problem? Or is someone just using buzzwords to sound innovative? Because once you see blockchain as a tool for specific situations instead of a revolution that changes everything, everything looks different. And that might be the most valuable thing you learn all week.